Hi everyone, my name's Pan and welcome to another edition of Bluebird Corner, the Cardiff City fans podcast. If you do subscribe, it is for free. We really appreciate all the people who subscribe and watch the podcast. We've had 14,000 views already in a few weeks, which is fantastic. So thank you for your support. Really appreciate it. So where are we at the moment? Well, we haven't signed anyone. I'm getting a little bit nervous. Maybe I shouldn't be. I know obviously we've got quite a few weeks until the season starts, but we've lost so many players. I mean, Rolsey, Reno, Yete, Ramsey, Conte, O'Dowda, Collins, El Ghazi, Reindorf, Simic, Gutas. It just goes on and on. So there's a lot of players who are either out of contract or who've gone on loan, or in O'Dowda's case, signed to another club for a fee. And, I don't think it'll end there. I think at the moment, as it stands, we've probably saved something in the region of 7 million off the wage bill. And obviously with 1.5 million coming in for O'Dowda, I think a percentage of that goes to Oxford United. I'm not so sure. But, we still probably need to shave another couple of million off that wage bill. I think it's most fans are aware that we're losing nearly 9 million quid at least from going down. I mean, supposedly, what I've been told by someone who's quite close to the club is that we're losing something, or we're going to be losing 200 grand a week minimum in League One, which over a season is another 10 million quid. And obviously we've had that offering fronted by Bale, that consortium, which is probably way under what Tan wants. But, it is a case of, you do wonder whether, Tan is still negotiating with the prospective buyers and there's not much movement on players coming in. Although I have heard, and whether it's going to happen, I know I did a goalkeeper possible transfer the other week, and Danny Ward ended up going to Wrexham because that was the other club who were heavily linked with him. But the other one, which is a Welsh international now, is Harrington, and Harrington obviously plays for Fleetwood, known as the Cod Army, and he was born in Ireland, in Cork, and his dad was a Welsh international, and as far as I understand it, there's 4 clubs in for him, and one of them is City. I think Wigan, Bolton are heavily linked with him, Preston, a lot of the northern clubs. So I think his save percentage was something ridiculously high, something like 60-odd%. And I think that was at Cork, and he's done really well at Fleetwood. He's 25 years of age. So again, is that someone who would improve City? He did have a really good season in League Two. Hovarth wants to get in the United States team for the World Cup next year, and he probably wants to be playing at a high level. Whether he gets that move is another question. But I think if a club comes in for him in the Championship, possibly a lower end type Championship club, he might do a decent job there, and I think he could go. In which case, Harrington would come in. There's no way Harrington's going to come in as third choice keeper or second. I can see Alnwick staying, and I think Harrington, 25, going to get better, would be a decent signing. As I said, his backstory is the fact that he has done well at the clubs he's played for. So that's a good sign. And obviously Bellamy has called him into the squad. I think in front of a couple of other goalkeepers could have been picked for Wales who've been in the squad before. So that's encouraging. So watch out for that one. Harrington in the next few days could be a City signing. But again, a little bit frustrated, about the fact that we haven't signed anyone. I think, looking at the squad as things stand, and I know it will change that first game of the season, if you were to sort of pick a first 11, would you say it's Hovarth, Nenji, Bagan, Fish, Darland, Chambers, and then you're looking at possibly someone like Tanner, Robertson, Ashford, Salic, Robinson? I mean, is that possibly what you would look at the moment? I mean, I know obviously Brian Barry Murphy is very focused on his wingers in his system and the way he plays, the work rate. So will it be that Tanner, Willocks, Ashford, Davis, are they going to be the ones who really fit into the way he wants us to play? And I think obviously we will begin bringing signings in. It could well be mainly loans. And obviously I think wing position could be where they strengthen, but certainly if Wintle goes or Chambers, and I think 33 grand a week for Chambers, as much as, he did quite well defensive midfield, but obviously in defence, no. But I wouldn't say he was brilliant. He was okay. Maybe that was just the whole team in general. They weren't really stand-up players. I mean, I think we already said O'Dowd was probably our best player was Salic. And other than that, there wasn't much to sing about. So, if we lost Chambers, would it be a big loss? Wintle, he wasn't, he came to us, he didn't really do much. I didn't really like him. Then he did improve. League One could be looked at as, probably one of the better defensive midfielders. I mean, he did reasonably well at Millwall. So we could possibly afford to Chambers go and then bring in like a young defensive midfielder from possibly Man City or Leicester's academy to push Wintle. But, I've mentioned in other podcasts about Jamie Donnelly. I mean, Jamie Donnelly, attacking midfielder for Spurs, who was on loan at Orient last year, scored a few goals, a few assists, one of the best players in League One. If he gets another move, he will be sent out on loan. I've got no question that is whether Tottenham will, let him come to a League One club, and that's one player we definitely would improve City. We need to get those goals from other than Salic, really. So it's who else is going to go? I mean, Atete for me, Bambi on ice. I don't know how he fits in. Obviously, had that injury when he joined Bolton. If he didn't have that injury, would he have been still with us now? I doubt it. And then obviously Callum Robertson, who we all know is subject of possible transfer to two championship clubs for a couple of £1 million. I think he is a good player on his day, but the injuries, it's like anything, isn't it? Is it a good time? When is a good time to sell a player? He has suffered a few injuries in his time. He doesn't seem to get a run of games under him. He scored 12 goals before, I think it was February, March, and then nothing in the last few months, 8-10 games. So I don't know about that one. Obviously on his day he's exceptional, but it's that consistency. So I wouldn't be too disappointed. But again, it's getting replacements in. If you're going to lose a Robinson, you need someone else, like a Jamie Donnelly, who I think would be a step up on Callum Robinson. Perry NG, I don't rate him. I'm sorry. I just don't rate the guy. I don't defensively, to me, awful. And I hope Capaccio does get a few more games this season. I do feel Louis Giles should go out on loan. Eli King, no. He's had 4 loans previously. He shouldn't be anywhere near the first team. Turnbull is a decent player, but, again, it's the issue about appearances that we paid £1 million out. We've got to pay another £1 million out based on appearances. So if he hits that threshold, obviously that's more money going out. So could it be a case of we let him go for the $1 million, which, there'll be loads of championship clubs who would come in for him for that price. So he could be another one. So there could be a few more players out the door. A lot of City fans are telling me Colwell, the younger Colwell, is better than Ruben. But let's be honest, he had a couple of loans. He went to Cheltenham. I think he did reasonably well there, but then he went to Exeter, didn't work out for him. So when you get opportunities on loan and you don't take them, the question is he good enough for Cardiff City's first team? And that's the one thing I would say about Joe Colwell. I haven't seen enough from him to indicate that he's a first team player. Ruben Colwell, the enigma I've talked about, supposedly Crystal Palace are interested. If Eze goes, Palace would be looking for 2 attacking midfielders, and if Colwell would be on their radar, but they would only bid a couple of £1 million, and City would be expecting 4 million. So that may not happen. But Colwell, again, he's hit and miss. Some City fans love him. Some City fans think, like myself, really doesn't do enough in the team. So we've got a lot of players coming out. We've and we knew we have to clear the decks. We understood that, but I'm just hoping now, and then this next couple of weeks, BBM has had a chance to look at all the players, and surely, he's going to be needing a few more bodies. There's definitely the team needs a few fresh faces. There's definitely going to be a few more leaving. I would expect 4 or 5 to either leave or go out on loan. So, if that squad that went over to Spain initially, is 26, I mean, that could go down to 20. So you're going to need 6 to 7 bodies coming in. And I just hope, in the next two weeks that we start getting some players in, because the season's not far away. What is it, 3 or 4 weeks away? So, I just hope now that we can start signing some players. And if we don't start signing some players, that would probably tell me that, Tan may well be looking at selling the club, just basically getting rid of some assets before he leaves. But there's nothing, from what I know, from people I've spoken to indicate we're anywhere near that point. And what I've been told is that Tan is more likely to sell in the Championship than in League One. He's going to get a higher value for that question. Whether someone would then pay that valuation is another matter. So, yeah, today's pod is more about where we're at the moment. Where do you think we need to strengthen? I mean, I think the fullbacks for me. I mean, there's a guy. I'm going to do some podcasts about possible signings, but there's a few players out there who've done really well in League One, League Two that we could get on, for fairly reasonable fees, who would be a step up, I think, on the players we've got. And I'll do those podcasts in the next week or two. But it'd be good to know who you think or what positions we really need, based on that side that I've mentioned. And I know, you could say Willock instead of Ashford, etc. If there was anyone else, excuse me, if there was anyone else that you would say, yeah, that would be our first 11. And does that sit well with you in terms of going into the first game of the season? Because to me, I look at Stockport, I look at Blackpool, you might say Bolton's, Huddersfield's, Plymouth, Luton. Yes, of course, they're going to be in and around their Reading under new ownership. But it's that possibly the so-called lesser clubs like your Stockport. I think Stockport could well be favourites. And I said Dave Chandler would have been a fantastic manager of City. I mentioned that in a previous podcast. We should have really gone all out for him. Never been out of the playoffs in some like 14 seasons. Unbelievable record. And he would have been a very good manager for City, I think. But he's at Stockport. They're signing some good players. They are going to get stronger. I fancy them to be the favourites for League One. And I think Luton obviously will definitely be up there with the money they've still got, because they would have had, the parachute payments. Bolton obviously has signed a few players. They're going to get stronger. So, as things stand, I'm thinking this 11, if we put that out for the beginning of the season, I'd be really worried that we wouldn't be anywhere near top 6, because Robinson is not reliable, consistent. So, if he has an injury, then, you're sort of playing around with your Isaac Davies, etc. I'm not saying they're not decent players, and probably in League One could be a lot of the lads' level. But, we need to get goals. We need more goals in the team. I don't like Darlands. I haven't seen anything to indicate to me that Darlands the answer in defence. Lawler, for me, maybe should be given a run of games, but again, he's a young player. It's a tough League One. If Bagan's in there as well, is that balance right? And the midfield, Robertson, as I said, not enough goals last season. Clubs are interested in him, but if we sell him for 4 or 5 million, then I'd start be really worrying about the whole dynamics of the squad. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of players going out. As I said, I'm just as I said, I'm hopeful now. In the next 2 weeks, we will get some players in and start sort of, because the feeling I'm getting from a lot of City fans at the moment is we're nowhere near the level we need to be top six in this League One as things stand. We had the one goal a game last season. We were conceding left, right, and centre. Our home record is awful. You can imagine at home in front of half-empty Cardiff City Stadium, which, let's be honest, it is going to be 15, 16,000 most games. That is going to, the smaller teams are going to come in down to us, and they're going to revel in it because they haven't got the intimidation of the old Ninian Park, and Cardiff City Stadium, when it is bouncing, is better. It does become more intimidating for away teams, but we don't get that enough. So let's be honest with you, a lot of away teams will actually relish coming down to our ground, knowing there's no real intimidation there from the fans because it is half-empty stadium, and that does make a huge difference. So that again worries me. Unless BBM gets these 6-7 players in that are actually going to improve the first team, then I'm already thinking we're going to start the season struggling. I don't want to be a pessimist. That's the last thing I want to do. But I'm just looking at as things stand, and it's early days, I know. But these next 2 weeks, we desperately need a few bodies in, and people that actually will improve the first team. So yeah, thanks for listening, Bluebird Corner, and we shall see you soon. Take care.